Network, brought to you by the Cleveland Observer. We have a magnificent show lined up for you today. We're going to be talking with some folks who are involved in the Transformative Art Fund project here in Cleveland. A lot to say about that. It's not a one and done, hopefully, and there is a lot that can happen with the right leverage and the right conversation. So we are happy to bring that conversation to you. We'd also like to express our gratitude for the Cleveland Observer's sponsorship of this radio program. We're going to be doing some things to expand our listenership and expand the content that you will be getting through this channel. I'd like to take this opportunity to introduce you to the creator and the founder of 360 Info Network, Brother Hamtonio. Brother Hamtonio, how are you today?
Oh, well, I'm great, great. Just getting adjusted again to the snow and things out there, like my friend said this morning, it comes every year. So we have to be cautious and mindful of that. And we Clevelanders, we'll make our way through. And we like to welcome you on this journey of discovery of who you are, what you are, and what we should be doing as a people. And we try to take a collective approach of plugging everything in to see and to verify who we are and what we are and how all these things connect in our journey towards consciousness, towards upliftment, and things that we know as a society and as a community that we need to do, to go on this journey. So we got a great show for you as usual today. And I just like to thank you guys for joining in and tuning in to what we do over here.
All right. So as I said at the top of the show, we're going to be talking about the Transformative Art Fund. But before we do that, I just want to put you on game about a few things that are happening at Larchmere Arts. This evening, we're going to have a closing show for Kim Essence Hunt Edge. She was our featured poet and visual artist at the beginning of the month, and she returned to the studio today. She's got a few works of art up on the walls, and we want to make sure that when we clear out today, everything is paid for and y'all take that art home. So come on through Larchmere Arts this evening at 5 o'clock. We're going to have refreshments. We're going to have food. I also want to let you know that next week we have another spoken word artist that will be gracing our stage. Her name is Butter, and I'm sure that she's smooth as she can be. So come on through next Saturday, 7 o'clock, and we'll have a good time. Just so that you know, we're talking about the Transformative Art Fund today, and we have a couple of people who have been involved with it. We have Miss Gina Washington. Gina is one of the committee members that selected the 7 projects that were chosen. We got a total of $3 million from the city, ARPA funds. We lobbied hard and heavy. We asked for 10. They gave us 3, and we did some magnificent things with $3 million. Thanks to the Assembly for the Arts, Cleveland City Council, and the BIB administration. So with that, I'd like to welcome Gina Washington. And she's always on the move. Gina is an artist in every sense of the word. She never has nothing to do. She always
That's for
has
sure.
something to do, and we're thankful that she was able to join us. Where are you on your way to, Gina?
To be honest with you, I'm on my way to the Natural History Museum. My
Okay.
daughter and her partner are in town visiting, so I'm make it off or anything, and we'll stay like connected to the system. So yeah,
Okay.
constantly in
Well,
motion.
thanks to the internet, we can do those kinds of things, and thanks to the brothers and sisters who created it for us, so that we're able to do these kinds of things. Gina, I was intentional about it, inviting you to the program today because
Hmm.
you just have a real, I guess, passion for art. So I don't think that it was a small thing that you were invited to join the committee. So I want to ask you what your thoughts are after we've done everything, after all the projects have been completed and we read through all the proposals. What are your thoughts about the success of the Transformative Art Fund?
Well, before I even say my thoughts, I just want to say thank you for inviting me onto the show. It's been an amazing year, and it's been a transformative year for Cleveland. So my thoughts about the actual Transformative Arts Fund are probably too long for the show. But I would say from the onset, right? From the onset, the committee got together. The committee fell in love with one another, and I want people to know that the committee was a broad spectrum of Cleveland, and we are so connected from that, right? We're all involved in music. We're all involved in different parts of the arts in general. So I don't think the people really knew how the committee got together and we were chosen. We had to go through a process to get there, and that's important. I'm part of what is, the citizen is so to speak, the people who not are just involved in the arts, but I don't represent an organization, so I represent the actual people who actually happen to make art. Um, so I think it's important for me to amplify that so people don't get caught up like, oh, these were like, you know, the usual bunch of whatever, you know. And with that said, I am busy, um, involved in the arts, and because of that, I can say the Transformative Arts Fund did an amazing job. We did an amazing job in creating the grant, creating the call that was very broad in a sense, and we got a lot. I don't even, how many did we get? I literally read every,
107. I think it was
okay, and that
107.
got, okay, I literally read every single one of them. And to be honest with you, from my first read of all of them, the ones that got it were the ones that stood out for me. You know what I mean? And I kept saying, well, we have to do this because this is, I've never heard this and seen this done anywhere. Specifically, the Sophia Avenue one, you know, bringing down a house with mushrooms and things to that effect. So, truly transformative. So, I think what happened that made this program even more monumental is artist led, coupled with the organization. There was a cap on the amount the organization could use, obviously. Um, but the lead artists were so ingrained in each one of their communities. So I think that stands for longevity beyond the actual dates and scope of the projects, ultimately.
Yeah.
And I think that's super important. So I think people are finding ways to make sure what they did doesn't end there, doesn't end. What was it? The final date was supposed to be September. We had the culmination of the whole thing in October. So it's not ending. And I'm also trying to find ways to make sure things continue and go on. But I think those relationships were paramount, and
Yeah.
those relationships will continue. And then there's the connection to the actual cities, the actual that's a whole nother story. I mean, because in Part 216, for example, didn't just go create murals. They connected to everybody there. They cleaned up the neighborhood. They made people realize that we're valued ultimately, right? So I think, and they're going to see that on a daily. On this snowy day, we're going to see these colorful, beautiful murals on a daily, and that's a beautiful thing. So, long story short, because obviously I can talk, um, it wasn't a one and done. It was something that's going to get the ball running down the mountain, rolling down the mountain, gathering snow, gathering steam, gathering whatever else to make more things happen. And if we can find a way to do this again, I think the committee as a whole knows the best way to do it, and we'll do it even better next time. I know we
Yeah.
have a lot of critique about it, and it's the first time that something like this has happened. It's the first time we've had um, a senior VP in the city, right? Rhonda Brown. It's the first time. So of course there's going to be, hiccups along the way. So, I hope people give us grace for that. I know we give ourselves grace. Um, so I hope this happens again, and I hope we maintain the connections, Vince, you and I, and the rest of the committee with everybody else who actually won the Transformative Arts Fund, so we can make sure that their connections to the city, connections to the people and the community, and what their missions were for each project continues beyond those projects.
Yes. Well, I want to amplify something that you said. You
Hmm.
said making sure that this was not just a one and done. And I think it's so important for us to understand that these dollars were a gift from Uncle Sam. They were
Hmm.
ARPA dollars. It was a one-time situation. But
Right.
as you pointed out, Rhonda Brown is at Cleveland City Hall. She's a senior strategist for arts, culture, and the creative economy.
Okay.
And it's a permanent position now. And so the mayor was reelected. So I'm going to go out on a limb and say that her position should be secure. But I
Yeah,
think what really needs to happen now is that we add arts and culture funding to the Cleveland City budget.
I
That
agree.
that's the next step. And we have in our midst a former public safety officer who was well aware of the dynamic in Cleveland and the fact that public safety is a primary concern to a lot of people. I
Hmm.
mean, I say this all the time. If you go to a ward meeting, the first half hour is going to be people complaining about we need more police. But I want to say that more than police, we need paintbrushes,
Right.
we need instruments, we
Right.
need dance studios, we need camera equipment so young people can learn how to make film. So we're going to bring aboard a couple folks who have been involved in specific projects. We have Mr. Ariel Vergez, who was the lead artist for the Art Garden project. And we also have, I call him my cousin. We're not really related, but maybe we are. We also have Robin Robinson, who was the lead artist on Impart 216, that mural program that you spoke about. Before we
Hmm.
bring them in, though, I want to ask Brother Antonio his thoughts about what he's heard about the Transformative Art Fund and the need for us to have more art and fewer police officers. Brother Antonio?
He said more art.
Hmm.
Yes,
Yeah.
everything plays. It's like a spoke in the wheel, to make the whole thing go around.
Hmm.
Art and culture, is a major player into that whole wheel that actually move us in the direction, as like we would want to, as far as a community is concerned, and it has a significant role. And that is why people, try to covenant it, and try to, take control of it, because it can be so transforming, because our visuals, things that we see, and images that we see, play a major role into our psychic, and how we move forward, and what we think about ourselves, what we think about the community, and things like that. So it plays a major role, and that's why we as a Black community has to really take more control of those particular things. You see, people went out their way, who control the music industry, who control those particular things. So it has to be some power there, and I think we have to, as a people, have to take more control of it, because it really plays a part in the psychic of our people.
Hmm.
All right. Thank you for that.
Mhm.
We have with us Mr. Ariel Vergez. He was the lead artist for the Art Garden project. We also have with us Robin Robinson. She was the lead artist for the Impart 216 project. And we have with us Miss Simi Davis. She is the owner of Seven Streams Consulting, and she served as a project manager for the All Our Babies Transformative Art Fund project. So, welcome to you all.
Thank you.
Thank you. Right.
All right. So I want to start with Ariel because I wanted to shine the light on the Art Garden project specifically. And just so you know, I'm also planning to do a show with Robin about Impart 216. That was a significant Transformative Art Fund project. And I'd also like to talk to Semi about All Our Babies because to me, that was just one of the most impressive of the seven projects. I mean, Gina, I get it, the mushrooms and the controlled demolition and all of that. Honestly, it didn't excite me as much as it excited you, but I was really pleased that we had such diversity in the projects. It wasn't just about Black people getting money. It was about a
Right.
cross section of artists in this community. And as you can see from the seven projects that were executed, it very well represented the diversity of the city of Cleveland. So, Ariel, your project was a West Side project. I think it was really kind of Latinx focused. Do you want to talk about the name of the project and what you intended to accomplish with it?
Sure thing. It's the art garden, and the the big thing for me was, uh, there's something in us, like you had mentioned earlier. It's about reshaping the identity of the community, and there's something about having beauty around you that lets you believe that something is valuable. And for our community, we had a strong focus in near west with with uh, with a microscope, if you will, on Store Avenue. And for a long time, that community has felt and has communicated that they've been forgotten or neglected. And there's nothing like beauty to bring value back to a community ethos or zeitgeist. And we got to see it in action, and it was pretty beautiful.
Yeah, I was on my way to the festival that you had, and I'm not sure what street I was riding on. I know Julio de Burgos is on that street. And as I'm approaching the art garden project and I'm riding down the street, I'm seeing all these people out on the street. They've got stuff in their yards, they got stuff for sale. And it just seemed to me that there's a really strong sense of community along that corridor. And I'm just wondering if somehow you were able to connect to the energy of that community through the project that you did.
Definitely, we got to. So many neighbors helped us, like, throughout the several murals that we did there, and it was pretty awesome. It's like when there was one time when uh, we just had to come paint at night because they're gonna take the lift, and one of the neighbors came out, brought an extension cord, lent us this big flashlight, and just like made sure that we could finish before all the equipment left. Um, we got connected to just a bunch of people that just passing by and driving by and really enjoying the project. And then there was some where it was like there was one building that we had to like clear out some of the greens, or like the growth. And he was like really down to help, so it's like, hey, help us out. He got a ladder, um tried to hook us up with a generator, and I cleared it out. It was really cool.
Mhm. So obviously there was interest in the project. Have you gotten any feedback from folks afterwards?
uh yes, and like for us, it feels like the project is still going, because like our whole goal was that it started the art garden, the funds, and then from there that we just continue working with you know the folks that we're partnered with. So right now, after our garden finished, working with Jasmine Santana's office to see about green spaces in the area and pocket parks. Looking at installing some sculptures next year in the spring and summertime. Still working with Metro West, looking at how we can, they got like the first funds to do the Art Garden Festival Part Two, like 2026. Uh, so for us, it's like that was a snowball that started and it's still rolling. So as far as I'm concerned, never ended.
Yeah. Well, it's really rewarding to know that things are continuing to progress, even though the funds that came from the city have been essentially cut off. And as we said before, it was a gift from Uncle Sam, and I think we did a lot with it.
Yeah, and then,
Before we,
and then if I could say like that one note is, from what I seen is like, although this was a one time gift, the gift wasn't a one time impact. Like all the lead artists are looking at ways to continue doing what they're doing, and what they started with the program. And it's like really inspiring to see
Mhm.
so many leaders in our communities like really step up and take the role serious.
Yeah, so in essence, it's the gift that keeps on giving. And you mentioned Jasmine Santana. I know she has access to community development block grant funds, and city councilmen typically dip into those funds to, I guess, pay for certain art projects that take place. But again, it's not something that comes out of the city's line for line budget. It's something that happens at the discretion of the council folk, and that's something that we definitely need to change. Before we move forward, I want to give you a chance to shout out the artists that you worked with and just talk about exactly what they did to execute the project.
Sure thing. So many artists. Well, we ran like a No Pressure No Diamonds, which was our apprenticeship program. So in that program, you know, Jonathan Henry was my right hand man, helping me with everything. We had Keisha Gray, amazing artist that helped and went on to do one of the murals and helped out with like four of them. Rashawn Carter also did one of his own murals and helped with many of them. We have Priscilla um, Flori- Florian, um, who is an amazing artist. Two Guardians is like her moniker, and she comes with a lot of experience in illustrative type works. We had Emma Stone, who's an amazing illustrator as well, and did helped like design one of the huge monumental projects on Denison. We had some what are veterans, Arlen Graff, who's an amazing muralist, and murals all over the world, who tagged in, uh, and an amazing sculptor. We had Andrew Reach, an architect turned artist that does amazing architectural work. Uh, then so many other people. Garrett came in and did a quick little something for us. Uh, and then we had like just another 10 different students that came by and went through the first part of the program, just learning how to use spray paint.
Yes. So what you're sharing with us was it's just wasn't a couple of artists. It was a huge team of artists and community support. And I think that really speaks to the transformative aspect of this project. So I thank you for sharing that.
Of
I will
course.
also tell folks that you can go to the City of Cleveland website and put in the search window Transformative Art Fund. And then you will get information about the 7 projects and an encapsulation of each project and what the intent of the project was. So we're not able to give you the visuals today, but my hope and my trust is that at some point the city of Cleveland will put together a sizzle reel so that folks can really see the impact of these 7 projects on the city and see what they look like. In your case, Ariel, it wasn't just about murals, it was more than that. You had a festival. I'm sure people are still talking about it and still feeling the energy that was a part of that festival. And I think it's something that will live on. Would like to welcome to our conversation Ms. Robin Robinson. She was the lead artist for Impart 216, and it is a collection of murals in the Kinsman Union Avenue area. It's like a welcome to the city now. We've got a portal that you can go through and you can be blessed by the beautiful images that those artists created. You want to talk a little bit about what that project was all about?
Yeah, thank you, Vince. Impart 216 is actually named Breathing Creativity into Communities, Impart 216. We decided to do our project in the Mount Pleasant area, uh, specifically on the intersection of Kinsman and Union, where they meet on that triangle, because Mount Pleasant historically um, was especially that intersection was a retail and mecca for activity in for Mount Pleasant, coming from many directions, from Shaker and so forth. So coming into the city recently was very bleak and dismal. Most of the retail was gone, the colors were gone. So it was important for us to bring that vibrancy back to that intersection and to revitalize the community.
Okay.
So
And
within Part 216, we actually did 6 murals on that intersection, uh, with the cooperation and engagement of the community, the new CDC, New Point, and just to basically bring that type of energy back into that corridor.
okay. I know one of the buildings is the former Two Cousins building. I'm not sure if it's still operating as a beauty supply
So it is.
business, but it really has a special place in my heart, because the two artists that worked on that project are very close friends of mine, Dr. Tamika Ellington and of course Nana Jare, who is a Ghanaian artist.
Mhm.
And when you look at the mural, you can definitely see his imprint on it. But you also worked with Ricky Lewis. You worked with Krista Freehands,
Mhm.
Days One, to Zion, Journey to Zion.
Yeah.
You had some really heavy hitters on your team. Can you talk about the artists that you worked with and what they brought to the table for you?
Yes. Uh, you did mention several. I had 12 artists altogether for the 6 murals. So the idea was not only to make it a transformative experience for the community and the the city for that travel, but also to make it transformative for the careers of these 12 artists. So I had 6 artists who actually do murals professionally. And then I had 6 artists to work with those artists that, are also artists in their own right, but wanted to learn more about the mural making process.
Yes.
So I had, you mentioned um, most of them actually. Lacey Talley was working with Days. I had Lolita Watson, or Wilson, I'm sorry, who was working with Darius Stewart. I also had Santana Watson, who was working with Alicia. Uh, I can't think of Alicia's last name off the top of my head. I'm so sorry. But there were so many different. The artists brought their own um, experiences, their own techniques. We had every month we met to have a cohort of learning and sharing those techniques and experiences with the artists. So by the end of it, everybody has a uh, an experience, and has a possibility of expanding their own careers in the mural making process.
Yes. And there was another, I guess, positive story about your project, and that is one of the buildings that has someone who owns it now who actually grew up in that space. You want to talk about that for a moment?
Yeah, I'm very proud of that. Uh, One of the property owners that was excited about this project actually has bought from the city, because the property was um, under the land bank. He bought it back from the city. He grew up in that building, uh, and Ricky and Krista has painted their mural on that building. he actually received one of the mayor's grants or awards. It's not a grant, an award to renovate that building. So that building is actually 3 different storefronts with apartments above. So when his idea to renovate that building is actually to bring that those storefronts back to operation. So there will then be 3 more retail spaces and apartments above.
Yes. So again, the gift that keeps on giving is not just in and out. Now, I was very strategic in inviting you today, Robin, because you are from Philadelphia. And as part of this project, you took a trip to Philadelphia to look at the mural situation that they have there. And you uncovered something, or at least you made me aware of something that has really touched a nerve for me, and that is the fact that the city of Philadelphia has $19.15 million in their city budget to support that mural program, a social justice program, and an education program that come out of that project. And then on top of that, they have $800,000 budget for their African American museum. So it's evident to me that there are some cities in this country that take the arts seriously enough to provide funding for it. Could you speak to the importance of having a city budget here in Cleveland that includes money for the arts?
Well, as you said, I am from Philadelphia. I grew up before the Mural Arts Project started in Philadelphia, so I know the impact that the murals have done in the ethos of Philadelphia, a large metropolitan city, and what it could do for Cleveland. And actually, the having the funding secured by the city budget is crucial for maintaining this type of project. As you said, that we are not a one and done, even with the small budget that in comparison to Philadelphia, the Transformative Art Fund is a small budget. And with the 7 projects that we did and accomplished, and be able to then, expand our scope beyond that Transformative Art Fund grant, to see that happen in Cleveland just gives you an idea of what could happen if we had a budget within the city departments.
Right. Well, I'm going to say when we have a budget. I don't want to say if.
Exactly.
When we have it, because I think we have a mayor who definitely gets it. I mean, after seeing what we did with $3 million, I'm sure he can see what we could do if we have a steady income stream, a revenue stream, in ways that we can support the art. And I think on the 29th of October, when we had the culminating event for the Transformative Art Fund, there was mention through Rhonda Brown that there was some type of $1 million RFQ that was out there. And I'm happy about that, but I just think that we can and we should and we will do more. We're going to step away for a few moments, and when we come back, we're going to bring into our conversation Miss Simi Davis. She was heavily involved in the All Our Babies program, and I want to give her credit where credit is due because of her input. That project was a success and will continue to have an impact in Cleveland. So we're going to step away and get a word from our sponsor, the Cleveland Observer, and we'll be right back with you momentarily. Here we go. We'll be right back.
Cleveland has stories worth telling and voices that deserve to be heard. That's why the Cleveland Observer is proud to sponsor 360 Info Network with Vince Robinson and Antonio on AM 1490 WCRE, where truth, culture, and conversation come together. Each week, host Vince Robinson and Antonio open the door to powerful discussions, from the arts and community history to the issues shaping our neighborhoods today. and the Cleveland Observer is right there with them, shining a light on the people and movements building a stronger Cleveland. Tune in to 360 Info Network and visit cleobserver.com to read, watch, and share more stories that inform, inspire, and unite our community. Because together, we are Cleveland's voice.
All right. Welcome back to 360 Info Network. We are having a conversation about the Transformative Art Fund. And we have aboard Mr. Ariel Vergez. He was the lead artist for the Art Garden Project. We have Robin Robinson, who was the lead artist for Impart 216. It was another program that had murals, but it also had some other elements. And if you're driving down Kinsman towards downtown, open your eyes when you get near Kinsman and Union. The Two Cousins building has a magnificent mural on that wall, and there are 6 or 5 others. And it was Alicia Vasquez. That was the name that you were trying to remember.
Thank you. Sorry, Alicia.
Absolutely. And I want to bring Ariel back into the conversation in a few moments. But before we do that, I'd like to welcome Simi Davis. Simi was brought in to assist with the All Our Babies project, and she came in as a project manager, and she had her hands full. But Simi has a background as a business person. She has 7 Streams Consulting. So this type of work was not new to her. It was true to her. And she came through blazing with quite an accomplishment in terms of the success of that program. So I'd like to welcome Miss Simi Davis. Simi is also an artist. Simi plays trombone, I think. But she's also a vocalist, and she's an artist at heart. So with all of that, welcome to 360 Info Network, Simi Davis. How are you today?
Thanks, Vince. I'm good. I'm good.
All right. Talk to us about All Our Babies, what it was able to accomplish and how you were able to assist in that.
Okay. Well, first of all, what an honor it is to be on the panel today. And I just want to say that as we looked at that event that was showing all the projects, my first thought about myself was I need to get out more because I want to see every one of those murals and all of the things. And it's like we drive by so much beauty in this city. And Cleveland is a really amazing area. I'm not originally from here myself. I'm from Michigan, but I've been here most of my growing up life. And so, I'd say I'm an adoptee, but, you're always an outsider until you're not. But as far as this event is concerned, it's not an event. It's our life. And this, All Our Babies, was really born of Erin Weaver and her team really observing and not really liking the outcomes and the statistics that have to do with birth outcomes for Black women in Cleveland. We're like one of the top 3 that have babies that don't carry to term. Before I was in this project, I've still been a part of the community public health coalition, and we've been looking at this for about 5 years, 6 years now, that birth outcomes are just horrendous. Black women are not carrying to term. They're having all kinds of complications at birth. And some of you might even have looked at the news the other day. It wasn't here, but there was a Black woman that sat in an emergency room and she was in labor, and they denied her and eventually kicked her out of the hospital, saying that everything that she was saying wasn't true. 8 minutes after she was ejected from the emergency room, she gave birth to a beautiful daughter with the help of her husband in the car. This stuff has to really be looked at. And we can't just wait for people to feel like they should do the right thing. If you notice, this is a country that has always turned a deaf ear until there were protests and movements and until we hit folks in their pockets. So having artists be able to speak up is really important. All Our Babies is really about all of us. and all of the experiences that we've had. And so we had the primary group were a group of dancers that founded it. Erin Weaver, who was the director of Mojiba Dance Collective, and then one of her staff, who was the lead artist, Jamila Rockman. And you all might know her parents, who did a lot of activism in this area over the years. But this was a conglomeration of doulas, birth workers, type, um, artists, visual artists, musical artists, dance artists, spoken word artists, sound artists, and visual representation, or like I like to say, the cameraman never dies. So it was really key. And you will see that in all of these projects, there was no way to really show all of the impact that art has if you don't have a good documentarian. And we had just three guys that did great documenting, and we didn't see what they were doing until the actual event. So I'm with you, Vince. I hope that the city does show some of these clips, because all of the documentarians and all of these projects captured some real deep things that need to be represented in our communities. So we have to emphasize that all art has a lifespan. And if it's art, visual art, it often is the entire life of that city. So you will see down right now until December 31st, beautiful representation, moving representation of the visual artists were asked, and this is all they were given. They were asked to give their interpretation of what needs to happen with those poor birth outcomes, and just to talk about Black birthing in the future, in the Afro future. And when you go down there, you see everything representing that. And some of them actually had a audio part to it as well, spoken word and some music to go with, but there was only certain ways that you could do it. So there were QR codes that you could tap into to get that. Part of me, beyond being an artist and an administrator, is I'm kind of a nerd, especially when it comes to history and art history. And we have got to come back to our role as setting trends in every city and setting trends in Cleveland. And part of this project was really about emphasizing that Black lives will exist in the future. They will proliferate. We will continue to be setting trends and moving the needle, if you will, in this community. Also to represent that art is economics, and economics has to have art. So we're trying to work to move that needle about making a line item for the budget for the city. Now, I don't have anything to do with it directly, but always behind the scenes to help.
Yes. So one of the impressive things about your project was that it involved a lot of different moving parts. You had installations over on the campus of Riddle. You worked in a building that is owned by the Cleveland Clinic somewhere in the Fairfax area, I believe. A lot of different moving parts. You had artist Jerome White, who created some art, I believe, that's still installed in Cleveland City Hall. And you had a magnificent program at Cleveland City Hall that incorporated the dance, the art. There was an African-centered vibe on that day, so people came and they had on cultural garments. I mean, it was just so impressive. And then at the culminating event, you shared a presentation that showed the impact of All Our Babies on the city and the artist community specifically. I don't expect you to give me all of the facts and all of the figures, but could you speak a little bit about the impact of All Our Babies?
Well, we were scheduled to have 6 activations in the community to involve the community in the actual art. So there were quilt making activations. There were some that had to do with body movement. That was what the dancers took over. And then somewhere along the way, the project moved its headquarters from one office that had our partner in it, or the partner was in that building. And we didn't have a place to move to. We had about 8 days to get out. So we moved over to Ridall because Ridall emerged and came forward. And it was the perfect spot for a program like this because the dancers could then dance freely outside, do grounding exercises. And then we had many of the midwives and the other birth workers, the doulas that came in. And there's a geodesic dome out at Ridall. For people who don't know, you got to go over there if you haven't been there. And it was completely run by solar power. There is no electricity in there, which these days, that's almost unheard of. You got something in your own house, you know, that you don't have any control over. They know where you are in your house based on the warmth of your body. So here we are in the geodesic dome, and the children were in there doing grounding. The parents, the grandparents, the great-grandparents came out. And so this was happening for the rest of the activation, the last couple of activations before the culminating event. So the first three happened in the community in the Fairfax area. We'll say down the street from the theater, but in that whole area, there's quite a concentration of folks that are doing a lot with communities of color, especially Black people. So it was really important that we continued with that, and we tried to find all of our vendors that were Black vendors or vendors of color, and we were able to achieve that to 91%. 91% of the people that receive funding from Transformative Arts from us were Black people in Cleveland. So that's really important, and we needed to emphasize that.
Yeah. I got to ask my brother Hamtonio, based on his experience with the city, first of all, your impression about the projects that you've heard about, and then secondly, your perhaps take on whether or not the city is ready to move forward with having a line item budget for art in its budget.
Well, with anything that you're trying to get from any kind of administration, it's going to take a collective of people, putting the pressure on it and showing, the feasibility, the need, and things of that nature, and how, you're going to have to convince, administrators that, the impact that it can have on the people and the students and things of that nature. I kind of like want to make a comment just, with the expertise that we have on the panel today, just, they may have some inroads on how to make it happen. When I used to talk about our image program, seeing how we can actually take it to the streets and the neighborhoods. And what I mean by that was I had the idea of taking these images, these positive images, to people's actually homes and their yards, making yard signs and things of that nature while people are moving back and forth. They can see these particular images because images weighs on the psychic of the person. And so if we have more positive images in the inner city, on the streets, in the neighborhoods, and while people even driving down the streets having these sayings, these positives, affirmations, and things of that nature, I think it all plays a part in this road to liberation, as far as I'm concerned. Because anything I hear and do, my first question is, okay, how can what we doing liberate our people? How can we get into the consciousness of our minds of our people to give them a sense of who we are, who they are, what they are, and how they can contribute to the community in a positive way, and get some of the ills that the negative images that they see all the time, how to subdue those images and replace them with positive images. So I think we as people and as a community, we kind of recognize and understand what the problem is, that our kids is emulating a lot of the negative images that they see in their face every day, but we're not offering up and counteracting enough positive images to counteract that negative image. So again, definitely we all know how the role that art can play in that movement, and to actually making people act and respond. So I would like to see, if anyone has the expertise of connecting with artists and seeing how we can get those things out into the neighborhoods, actually on the streets and houses and things like that.
Well, I will look at someone that you have brought to the table in the past, Brother Jerry in Ghana, and the impact of the ancestral wall.
Right, right, right.
You know, and the fact
Hmm.
that you have these images that have history connected to them,
Yes. Hmm.
and you have an ability to expose folks to those stories that they may not have heard about. So I think what you're talking about perhaps is an artist-led initiative, but I think what has to happen is there has to be some kind of funding for it, you know, because artists have to purchase oils and canvases and all the things that they need to create the art, you know, and I think it's great to think about perhaps a volunteer effort, but you know, we live in a world that revolves around the flow of currency, and the currency has to flow into the right hands in order for the right things to happen. So I think now more than ever, we really need to engage in a conversation about how we can fund these different things. And I'll just come back to we need more paintbrushes than pistols. That's all I'm saying. You know, we need to give young people something to do while they're in school, and we need to give young people something to do after they leave school, you know, after school programs so that they can stay connected with the art and stay connected with history. We talk about history on this program all the time. And I think one of the biggest issues that we have as a people is that we don't remember who we are. We don't know who we are and we don't remember who we are. And when we restore our memory so that we understand who and what we are and what we are capable of, because see, that's the backstory. In spite of the fact that so much of our memory has been erased, look at what this country is because of the things that we have created. And when you talk about art, you're talking about creation. So it's the things that we create. And I think one thing that really has to come across in this program, and I'm going to invite Ariel to comment about this in the few moments that we have before we move on to the second hour, is how your artists were empowered by this project. What benefit did they get because of their involvement in this project, the solutions that they brought, and perhaps a vision that they have now that they know that their voices are important and they can be impactful. Ariel, what are your thoughts?
Thank you for that deep, deep question. You know, you'd really have to ask them to really get their mindset on it. I can only give you as like an instructor and maybe as a leader in the group my observation. And the biggest one that I saw was just confidence in their process and in their voice. And you know, one of the things that we take for granted is, especially as artists, is that we tend to do this thing alone a lot because that's just how it is. You know, you're in your studio, you're in your room, you're in your whatever, and it's usually like a second part to your daily, right? It's not usually your main thing. um, I've had the benefit that I've like really cultivated adding more time so that it became my main thing. But for most people, it's not the main thing. So it's always an extended part of the day. So it was really cool seeing how, this, because the whole reason I even call it Black Brain Group is because I realize where I want to go with things, I can't do it by myself. There's only so many hours I got. There's only so many hours I can stand up before like I'm done, but just seeing that light switch in the young artists where come into the studio up to 2-3 times a week, and then when we're jamming just being on site on the different places and just like really building a little community during the time is just seeing people's talents increase, their abilities increase, understanding the process, being fluid in it, and us being able to like just move in and out of each other's spaces in a really fluid way without like a whole lot of external communication. It just showed that, hey, we got into a system and into a flow, and now it's like, hey, how can we keep that going?
Yeah. Well, you know, it's interesting when you talk about the fact that artists are involved in a part-time basis, you know, and I was just thinking, you know, what if we could do this full time? What if we could change that whole narrative of the starving artist who has to do this job or that job to subsidize their process or to subsidize their practice? It's really so important that we move to artists as solution oriented folks, and we're living in this world of AI and jobs that are being sucked up by this artificial intelligence, but there is only so much that AI can do. And then you also have that human creative element that is so important that cannot be completely eliminated. So I applaud you for being able to facilitate the empowerment of those artists. I'm looking forward to having the conversations with Robin's team and possibly at some point with the team of artists that worked on All Our Babies, just to see what they got out of it. Simi shared some statistics about the number of artists that were involved in this program, and we're going to take a deep dive into that when we return. But we're about to transition to our exclusive YouTube, LinkedIn, and Facebook online paradigm as we depart from the 360 Info Network on AM 1490 WERE. If you have been listening via radio, we have 4 guests with us. Gina Washington is a member of the Transformative Art Fund Committee. She is a very engaged and prolific artist. She has some work up in the Midtown Collaboration Center, I believe. I know it was up earlier this year. Very impressive artwork. We have with us Mr. Ariel Vergez, who is a lead artist on the Art Garden Project, Transformative Art Fund Project. We have Robin Robinson, who is a lead artist on MPart 216. And we have Miss Simi Davis, who was the project manager for All Our Babies. Brother Hamtonio, anything that you want to share with us before we move on to the next? Your mic is muted.
Yes, yeah, not much, but just to, for us to, if we're going to move anything forward, in a positive way for our community is concerned, it's going to take a collective, and we have to be on the same page in doing it. So you have to go down there and convince them on how these particular projects affect our community, especially our youth, because we have to connect to them.
Yes, absolutely. And you know that you have 3 very staunch advocates. I'm going to say 4 staunch advocates because I know Ariel gets it. But you can best believe that Gina and myself and Robin, and I don't know to what extent Simi might be doing it, but we're going to be in some ears in the coming year because we got to put money in the budget. It's just that simple. I want to take this opportunity to let you know that you are listening to 360 Info Network right here on AM 1490 WERE. Just a couple of quick announcements. We're going to be doing a nice program at Larchmere Arts this evening with Essence Hunt Edge. She's got some artwork on the walls, and we want you to leave with that. Also want to invite you to join us next week for a performance by Butter, spoken word artist with Elijah Gilmore, and Chef Valentina will be providing the cuisine. Thank you to Tone Harley for making all of this possible, keeping us connected via radio. And to those of you who are listening and watching, as always, know yourself, love yourself, be yourself. Make today your best day. Peace.
Peace, peace.
Welcome to 360 Info Network right here live on YouTube. You can see us on The Journey with Hamtonio. He has a YouTube channel and we simulcast to his channel. Go to his website, go to his channel, like, comment, subscribe, share this content with folks so that they can get access to the great things that we talk about on this program. You can also go to my YouTube channel and do the same thing. We're streaming live to the 360 Info Network Facebook page, and we are also streaming live to my LinkedIn page. So you got a lot of different ways that you could connect with us. We are awaiting the entrance of Dr. Will Washington. Dr. Will was also a member of the Transformative Art Fund team. He has the Washington Wellness Institute, which is a place where you can go to get therapy for a lot of different things. And I wanted to have him on today to talk about art as therapy, because I know Robin is a therapist. She works with art. She works with students. She works with adults. And there are things that happen because people are engaged in the arts. You know, it's really that simple. So we're going to welcome everyone. As always, go to our channels, like, comment, subscribe, share. We appreciate it. It helps us to do what we need to do in order to bring things forward. Simi, I want to come back to you because we talked about the impact on artists through your project. So can you share a bit more about the impact that All Our Babies had on the artist community here in Cleveland?
Okay. I did mention in the chat that we had 45 artists that were involved with our project, All Our Babies. Just an example of who was involved would be those in the healing arts. That's those who do Reiki and other kinds of massage and making oils and that sort of thing. Movement artists, including dancers. The visual artists that are still on the walls at the city hall and actually will have an ongoing piece even after the 31st of December, where they'll be transforming the art that they have downtown into prints that will be available for sale for each of those artists. Music art. So we did have Morning a Black Star, which is a band that was available, and we had some other musical acts. A couple people from that group also did some music and some spoken word. So we had poetry, spoken word. We had creation of art, where we had a community quilt project where many of the quilt makers, expert quilt makers, came together with the community. This mostly happened at Ridall, and they created a large community quilt that told the story of birthing experiences in Cleveland. We actually also used AI in having a booth that was available. We were trying to gather 250 stories. I think we're up to 91 so far, gathering stories of the birth experiences for people, whether it was their individual birth story or stories about someone in their family. They could pick up a phone and actually talk. And there were prompts that were done through AI to prompt the teller of the story to tell more about the story, something that we don't do as much as we did back in the earlier days of our lives, telling the story of birth, talking about midwives, that midwifery is not something that came out of medievalism or any other communities. We always had midwives in the African communities, and we brought them with us when we were here, because who was going to give birth or help give birth here? So we had that. We also had sound as part of the artistry. We were working with Vertical Sound and some others who were responsible for projecting some of the drums. There was a drumming circle that was an all-female drumming circle that participated in the event as well. They were with the dancers and also with the band. So they came and told their stories through drum. So we had a number of ways that art was expressed. We also had culinary art. Some of you may not know, I didn't know, but the city of Cleveland has a whole catering company that came through, and the food was absolutely wonderful. And it was particularly suited for that evening. So people came in. It was also an Afrofuturist event. So we did ask people to dress Afrofuturistically, which basically is it melding hip hop, funk, jazz, and all musical art forms of the Black community together to tell the story of our people. And so people came in, whether they came in an African dress or if they came in with some kind of a punk get up, or they had on something that had to do with funk, looking more like George Clinton in Parliament, Funkadelic. And we talked about the evolution of funk, rap, hip hop, and how it continues to keep us telling the story over. There is an African proverb that was alluded to with Ariel, his comment. And it goes that if you want to go fast, go alone. But if you want to go far, go together. If we want our stories to continue to be told in this community, we have to continue to come together. And that's the biggest challenge of AI. AI sometimes encourages separatism. And as we know, a house divided against itself will not stand. So we have to start coming together and over communicating. In this time of high tech, we have to be high touch. And so that, I think that was one of the larger challenges in working with the group. Everybody wanted to stay on WhatsApp or, put something in a machine. And it's like, you need to talk to each other. You need to see each other's faces. Let's come together. So we were meeting twice a week, minimum 2 hours. And that's a big commitment for artists to do, because like Ariel was saying, you like to go and do your thing, but we had to come together to show each other's faces and talk with each other and see that we had much more in common than we did not in common.
Mm-hmm.
And
So
it's
I'm going to bring Gina back to us. I'm just loving all of the scenery. I mean, she makes me want to get up out my seat and go to the museum. It's great energy in there. But before we do that, I just wanted to read a few things to you in terms of the journey of all our babies. So there were 78 local artists and creatives, according to the slide that was done. $251,000 to local artists out of that project. $56,000 in in-kind services. 150 new artworks were created. 110 children and youth served. $81,000 committed to local businesses. There were 23 artist-owned businesses supported and 65 plus local businesses supported. 19 community partners, 55 volunteers, 146 people in terms of senior participation, ages 65 and up. And I don't know if they included me in that, but I think I was one of that 146, so we'll call it 147. Okay. But again, there are just so many different statistics that we can refer to, and I think that it's important that we tell this story, that it didn't happen in a vacuum, and people can continue to see the impact of this project, because I don't want to wear it out, but it was truly transformative. It woke us up to the possibilities of engaging people in productive activity, and that's what I want to talk to Gina about. What do you think was the impact of this project when it came to empowering artists, and specifically empowering young artists in our city?
All in all, I think the most important thing, mentorship programs happen. But this across the board was like a mentorship program, right? You had the older artists bringing up the younger ones. And we want that to continue to happen, because we see that we all need to nurture one another's tools and gifts and whatnot. So I think that was truly amazing to see that, specifically in Robin's piece too, but in all my babies. I just look at the diaspora of color. I looked at the diaspora of ages, especially in the culminating piece at City Hall. That was nothing but intergenerational, right? So I think when it comes to the artistic community, um, and just so everyone knows, I'm a teacher. My biggest joy right now is teaching pre-K, kindergarten for the second grade. I am hyper aware that as you get older, your imagination sloughs off because the system cuts out critical thinking and all that. So I'm hyper aware of maintaining that spark in our youth and having that spark generate, I don't know what. So each one of us has to bring the other one up. And the reason I'm so busy, Vince, the reason I'm always in the room is because I recognized when I began all this that nobody was in the room that looked like me. So my point was to get in the room and open the doors so the people can be there, right? So other people can to share their gifts and bring everybody else up. So I mean, I don't know if I'm answering the question entirely, but I think that's what I saw in each one of these projects. not just with the artists and the institution, the artists and the community. Everybody is teaching everyone. It was more of it's a symbiotic relationship of learning and love,
Yeah.
which will continue. It'll continue because you and I, Vince, and Will, when he comes on, are adamant about that.
Hmm.
It'll continue because of the people who are on the call right now, right? You know, even
Yeah.
Ariel's group. It was all about mentorship, teaching these painters how to create in his vein, right? The way he does it. I mean, your style, that, just, I don't, spray painting, that, it's one thing to take a brush, it's one thing to take a can and spray paint. I mean, those two different techniques. They're just completely amazing, um, ultimately. So, I learned from all that I saw and will continue to foster that and how I teach and what I teach.
Yes.
Even one of the things you did too, Robin, in teaching the community, how to even create events, basically. Everyone had an event, and in all those events, there's a process. And I think in the making and creating of the events, Jamila learned a lot. She can be able to do that again. We each one of you guys learned, I can do that. I can duplicate that event. I can make that event better. I can teach somebody else how to create that event. You know what I mean? So all these skills are necessary for so many and cross over in so many different things that it kind of blows my mind. And as
Yeah.
a committee member, I think our committee should definitely come back together and go, because it's going to happen when the money comes in.
You can come sit at
How
this
can we
bench,
make this
Maddie.
better?
Come.
And
Here.
how can we make it even more comprehensive? Because it was
Yeah.
super comprehensive. It really was. It really
Well,
was.
one of the things that they could do to make it even more comprehensive is pay the committee members. Because I mean,
Yeah,
I'm
nobody knows. We volunteered for 2 years plus, right?
two
Nobody knows.
years and hours and hours of meeting and staying engaged. And I will tell you that it was a labor of love, but I think there's value to what we did as community members. And I also want to give a shout out to the Assembly for the Arts, because the Assembly for the Arts did it at a lower cost in terms of administrative fees. They were justified in charging more than they did, and it was the Assembly for the Arts staff that did a lot of work on that. So, but I want to applaud what you just said and amplify what you said about the intergenerational piece. I'm looking at the gray on Ariel's face, and I know he's not as far advanced as I am in terms of being elders, but I know that he was someone that was looked up to by the younger artists that he worked with. There was that intergenerational component that's so important for us when we look at our culture today, because there's so much of a disengagement between the elders and the youth. And we need to engage in these types of things so that we can understand our connectivity and also learn from each other. There were artists in your project, Ariel, that were new to using spray paint to do murals. So I know it was a learning experience to them. And the evidence of the success of that is that you can go and see those murals. And I'm sure that you did something to protect those murals so that they have a life that extends for a much longer period of time and protects them from graffiti and whatever. But the other side to that is that there has to be maintenance built in to these projects so that you can come after the fact and do things to support not deteriorating to the point that they could, because weather is real up here in Northeast Ohio. I mean, just look at what happened within the past couple of days. Winter is not supposed to arrive for another 3 weeks, but here it is. We look out the window and we see 4 or 5 inches of snow piled up on the ground. So again, that's just another idea to support the idea of having a budget for art in the city. Robin, would you comment on the intergenerational part of your project? Because I know you work with some young artists, and I'm looking at the crown on your head right now, and it's changed a little bit over the years. You want to unmute?
I think I'm looking at the panel here, and I think we all a little a little white on top. Um, the idea of working with a younger, less experienced generation. I too am a teacher. Uh, it's important that we pass on the knowledge that we have uh, to people, kids, uh, a less experienced audience, so that, I mean, and not only pass it on, but learn from them also. I mean, it has to be a exchange of ideas, an exchange of experiences. With my group, as I mentioned, I have 12 artists, but they ranged, from 60 to 20s, and that type of exchange of information was crucial to our project. So we met regularly to, teach each other what we understood, our processes. So all 12 of the artists ended up with that, multifaceted experience. We had walls that were from vinyl siding to brick to glass. We had different techniques. We had, as far as learning, just the process of putting a mural on the wall. So, different scales, different uh, ways of, putting that image onto a wall. So there are a lot of different things that go into, this, our experience as a cohort, but also to be able to have that mentorship was crucial and will extend. I mean, our artists will then be able to take that information on to other artists or other venues and be able to bring that, richness of experience on to other people.
Mm-hmm. Simi, I know you are like me at a certain stage in life, and I know you were working with younger people. Could you talk about perhaps some of the challenges that occur within that intergenerational dynamic?
I think I alluded to that a little bit, but there are some things that have to do with the newer, I'd say the last three generations have been so driven by visual, by what you see. And where we came from, it was always put your money where your mouth is, and data, numbers don't lie. We had things underneath that, which was more of the foundation to keep something going. Um, there's a sense of legacy always that leads with an older group, whereas with the younger group, it's do it and do it now. Neither one of them is valued more than the other. They are needed. They're both needed. So we always had the younger artists. They had never done this sort of thing. Some of them had never exhibited their art publicly. And so when they would come in, we did not have a long time because we had a timeline we had to match with the city, to have the exhibit on time. So we didn't have a lot of time. So there was a matter of bringing it together on a Zoom call so that these artists could exhibit their art to each other. And just to see their faces when they heard something from one of the senior artists like Jerome or someone to who has mentored so many people and brought them through. And to see their face when they got a compliment that this is amazing, this is outstanding, it meant more to them, I feel, than just what they might hear from the general public. So it's important to build those bridges. I also think the issue of communication is very different in the 20s. We had the same age range. And so for a 20-year-old communicating with a 70-year-old and vice versa, I think the issue of being brief, but having detail, having enough information in those communications was really key. And sometimes I found, because, that's my gift is administration, but I'm also an artist. So I had to go back in and ask questions as opposed to saying, you didn't do this and you didn't do that. I'd have to say, how would they know that you're here? Did you call them? Well, no. Did you send them a text? No. And then get them to think about, how you're going to communicate with the people that you're communicating with, because it's different for every generation. And so you got 4 sets of 20 years. That's 4 generations that you got to figure out how to best communicate with and trying to translate that. So I think that was the biggest challenge that we had. Then there were some disciplinary kinds of things, having to deal with birth workers communicate differently than movement workers, than dance people, and dancers communicate with their bodies differently than musicians do, than singers do, than drummers do. And then we also had hairstylists that did all those elaborate, intricate headpieces. We had the braiders that came in. They had a whole different thing. I was kind of chuckling when we saw, we were looking at Kinsman and we saw 2 cousins, because that was like the first store when I moved here 40 years ago. That was the first store that I went to get my braid hair, and it's still there. That's a good thing. So, having the clothing, all of the clothing that was made in the fashion show was designed first and then handmade. And some of the material was handmade. And so being able to interpret that for people without people feeling like, well, I don't want to be arrogant. No, you have to tell people all these things originate first in the mind of the artist, and then it can be articulated out into the world. And that's the thing that we don't always let people know, that everything that's ever been created came first in here. Folks who did it well, when you think back of Andy Warhol, he took something so simple, a can of Campbell's soup, and those kinds of everyday things, and he understood that concept on some level. We have to also understand that everything we do has value to our community. We are valuable. We will exist in the future. The Afro future will always go ahead of the rest of the population, because these are the survivors. These are the people who made it. So they know something about being here longer than a minute.
Okay. I want to bring into the conversation the fact that you all work with institutional partners. Ariel, could you talk about the institutional partner that you worked with, and perhaps the importance of working with these institutions?
Sure thing. I had the pleasure of working with Metro West, that focuses on, art installations and creative endeavors in the Near West community, and it was a huge help just in, bringing, it's like, it's a really bad word in the art scene, but bringing a little bit of administrative objectivity actually, goes a long way in keeping things organized. And with Metro West, we were able to go through some SOPs that they already had and create new SOPs for those that. Sorry, I've been working with them, so now I'm in the 3-letter crew, right? Like standard operating procedures, and just a methodology of systemizing processes, just because the amount of paperwork and everything else that goes through working with the city is immeasurable. And one of the things that should be noted is that when I started anyways, like I thought, because it was like a city grant, city approved, mayor bid, that we were gonna get like, the shortcut and like just go right in, and everybody knows what we're doing. Like the city knows what we're doing, so we're gonna get clear way through. It was the opposite, because it was a city project. We were extremely scrutinized in our process, and like before any pigment can hit the wall, it had to go through like the city design review. If it was a historic center, a historic community, like historic review, da da da, with the sculpture bills. Like you're going through city planning, you're going like city builds. It's immeasurable, like the amount of like bureaucracy and paperwork that goes into making sure that what we're doing is safe for the community and for the public. And there's no way I could have done it if I didn't have a community partner. There's no way, like that amount of administrative work. Like I felt like I was, cuffed to the computer, and like going into the city and da da da. But I was still able to, be an artist for a little bit, and I got to shield the team from a lot of that because I had the support of Metro West.
Thank you for that. Robin, would you comment about that? Talk about who your partner was and what that experience was like.
You muted. Okay.
Yeah. I was very fortunate to have Ingenuity Cleveland as my institutional partner. I've already had a relationship with them working on different projects in the past. So we already had an understanding of who we were individually and collectively. I so agree with Ariel about the amount of red tape that went into this project. Transformative art, the Transformative Art Fund process was rewarding but challenging at the same time. And Emily Applebaum, who was the executive director of the Ingenuity Cleveland, and I worked as a team. Although Ingenuity was the financial end of the project, she and I maneuvered around the obstacles of the bureaucracy. We did also shield our artists from all of that, paperwork and so forth. Having done this type of, not to this scale, but this type of project before, I am working with the city, I knew that, everything would be, segmented, payments would be, in sections and not all at once. A lot of people thought, oh, we're just going to, get paid. But as far as the amount of oversight that was required from us was something that, was surprising at times. And, kind of, as a creative person myself, it's just like, let me do it. I know what I'm doing, just let me do it. But, I understood why, things were going the way they were, what documentation was needed at when and that sort of thing. So, having the institutional partner along with me, the creative part, they were like the other part of my brain, and we worked well together, and I appreciated the fact that they were there. And in order to make everything work smoothly.
Okay. Well, I will add to the conversation the fact that you are the executive director of Sankofa Fine Art Plus. So the administrative piece was something that is in your wheelhouse. We're going to invite Brother Antonio to give some comments. But before we do that, I just want to get the take from Simi Simi is the owner of Seven Streams Consulting. She has a tremendous, uh, I guess, wheelhouse when it comes to matters of business and administrative things. At one point, she was running the Hitchcock Center for Women. So I know that she is very well versed in bureaucracy and red tape and all of that. What was your experience with your institutional partner, and how were you able to navigate that?
Okay, well, our institutional partner was Cleveland Clinic. Now, whatever was just said by the other two participants, I want you to multiply that times about 5,000. Because when you're talking about an institution, when you talk about Cleveland Clinic, yes, they have become nonprofit. They have a nonprofit arm, but they don't operate like a nonprofit as you would think of one. Like when I worked at Rap Art, or when, all the other places I've worked nonprofit, it's not the same. What they have is a faction for art installations, which is also different. But we fell into that area, so that, this is the art. When you go into Cleveland Clinic, any of the, Hillcrest or any of the other ones, you see the art on the wall, and there's an acquisition process that goes with that. Well, that was the team that was responsible for us. And so I will stop and give them credit that we had a lot of back and forth at the beginning, because I came in late in the game in the project to help them with the project, help it move along smoothly. And I'm kind of polylingual or trilingual. I'll try whatever will work for us to hit what we need to hit. And so I will give them credit that they had to stop and think about, how can we make this work? Not how can we be obstructive? They thought about, how can we make this work? So we moved to weekly meetings where we would have a quick Zoom meeting to just kind of lay out how the funds could be spent. And they had to swallow a lot of frogs for us. They had to go in and help us figure out how we were going to do this, because with artists, especially the kind of art that was being produced in this project, we needed money now. You need to pay the person that's making the thing, whatever it is, whether it's a structure where we were making a dome for the Afro future, or whether we were making a dress, or whether it was going to be the dancers and the space. Things needed to happen now. And that's not a term that a large clinic like Cleveland Clinic can do, or does, I should say, does regularly. And so pushing doesn't help. So you got to go in with honey and offer it. And that was what needed to happen. We needed to have a coming together. And here was the piece. All of the art team were women. And every last one of those women on that team could understand what it meant to have a positive birth experience. So that was the piece that we talked about. And that, of course, then emphasized how important it was for this project to be a success. And I will give them credit. They really leaped over some belief systems that they may have held on to from, what we get when we work with institutions. When I worked for the county, there's a lot of things. You work with the feds. There's a lot of things you have been built in to believe. And we have to come out of that and remember to always keep the main thing the main thing. And that's what we had to do, is keep in front of us all our babies, not some of the babies, not y'all's babies and their babies, but all our babies are important in Cleveland. And that was the thing that I think pulled everything together for us.
Okay. Well, I just want to continue to amplify the fact that we need to continue our focus on this. We can't just let this be something that fades off into the sunset, into oblivion, because this is one of the most important things that we can do for our community, to stay engaged in art. I bring this up all the time. Racism is a public health crisis, and artists are solution oriented. And one of the things that we do is we solve problems. And so you have to empower artists to do what they do. And I know a lot of times money doesn't get spent because of red tape. I'll give you the example of Cleveland Hopkins Airport. The airlines give money to the airport, and sometimes that money goes unspent because the city doesn't act the way it should act on those dollars coming in. We should have musicians performing in that airport every day. People come from other parts of the country and they come into Cleveland. This is the rock and roll capital of the world. This is a very prominent place in terms of music. Why don't we have music in the airport beyond Muzak? You know, there should be 3 or 4 pianos in the airport so somebody like me can just walk in, put my hands on the piano, and make the music that makes people happy. It's a simple thing, you know, it's a simple thing to set somebody up with an amplifier and a violin and play some live music in an airport. It's not, you know, it's not that complicated. But I appreciate it, everything that you all have shared in terms of working with those institutional partners and, you know, the challenges that were involved, but the fact that you were able to get the job done. You know, that's the most important thing so that we can instill a certain level of confidence in our political structure to know that when you give this assignment to us, we can do what needs to be done. Brother Antonio, you've taken in a lot in terms of this project, and we will continue to shine the light on the Transformative Art Fund because we don't want it, as I said before, to fade off into the sunset. But what closing thoughts do you have about what you've heard today and perhaps what the future holds for us?
Yes, everything is about a collective. Like I stated before, with me, it's about liberation and what can we do to change the mindsets of people in our community because we're in a crisis in our community. And arts can play a role in that. I asked the question to each one of us is, are we happy with what we see in right now? Are we, we happy where our community is at right at this particular time? If not, that means we got to have a different and innovational approach to doing some things. We have to do that. Dr. Amos Wilson said, if we don't charge our kids or set up to where our kids can fix our problems of the day, then we're just spinning our wheels. If we have a lack here and a lack there, we should somehow be encouraging our kids or informing them with the information and the tools that they need to fix our problems of today so we don't go through those same issues tomorrow. And arts, can be very important in that. We should, when I think about when I'm listening to this, I'm thinking about a collective approach. We have issues of different pillars in our communities, in the financial world, in the spiritual world, in the political world. Arts can actually identify and express those things through art, and showing something that that is motivational in the financial realm of things. Creating arts that deal with those issues in our community. Some art can be created to deal with some health issues, and I'm saying that we have to shape and mold our people into a certain way of thinking so we're not left behind in everything. So that's why I try to, if I hear anything and somebody doing anything, my question is, okay, how can that help our people? How can that liberate them? How can that help change the mindsets of our people and bringing them forward? Because right now we're in a helter-skelter situation here, and we need to have all hands on deck. So those particular approaches with the financial, that's an issue. With the spiritual, that's an issue. Health, that's an issue. Our politicians, that's an issue. And so if art can be used to actually deal with those particular issues in our community in a positive way, and people know the purpose, and getting those children connected to some of these programs to where they start taking ownership of it and taking ownership of the streets in their communities because they was involved in that school. You brought that art out of the school and you brought it into the neighborhoods, and now they are feeling some type of pride and ownership and things of that like that. Because I'm a true believer, if you feel better about yourself, you do better about yourself. So that collective has to happen, for us to, because you can't, be doing things in that area or genre of things and not, dealing with the other side, because you can't have the financial without the spiritual side. You can't have the spiritual side and not dealing with your health side, because those are all issues that affect our community, and it is important. So I think, all hands should be on deck. This is just where I'm at. All hands should be on deck, and because we're in a crisis situation right now, and everything that we should be doing and creating at this point is about unlocking who we are, that mindset, and those visuals should be doing some things to reach to that old ancestral DNA and bring that genius out.
Yes. Well, I will say this. There's a lot going on in our world today, and there are a lot of people who are doing things to make a difference. And I think, based on what we've seen in the past year or so, the collective activity of all these artists and the value that they brought to our city is undeniable. And so, for that reason, I think we should continue to have conversations about this so that people do not forget. And we need to lean on our legislative folks to make sure that they make the right decisions about the future of our city and our connection to it as artists. I want to thank Ariel and Robin, Gina, and Timmy for joining us today. Dr. Will has an event that he's participating in today, and they had a sound check that was supposed to happen at 10:30. Things don't always happen the way they're supposed to happen, but I pledge to you that we will bring Dr. Will on in a future program, and we will talk about art and healing, because those things go hand in hand. We are the healers, and we deal with things holistically, as Brother Hamtonio was just sharing with us, not like the compartmentalized allopathic medical industry, but those who see the mind, body, spirit connection, because those things are the complete aspect of who we are. I will say this and say it again and again and again. We're divine beings having a human experience. And art is one of the things that connects us to our divinity. And as long as we recognize that, and as long as we live in it and live in our purpose, we will be the change that the world needs to see right now in the face of all the chaos and confusion and calamity that exists. The thing that will get us through everything is our connection with the divine. I want to thank again everyone for joining us today. And thank you for the successful execution of those projects, because there are a lot of folks who didn't think it could happen. But thanks to your collective activity, they did happen. And I'm telling you, Gina Washington and all of Tara Petras and all of the folks who were on that committee, we're very happy with what happened. I'm telling you, that event that we had at MLK Library on the 29th of October was magnificent. And as I was saying earlier in the program, I would like to see all of those project videos posted on the City of Cleveland website, as well as a sizzle reel that will put all of those things together in a concise manner, because as Simi hit the nail on the head. Folks ain't ready to read a long, involved email. They want it quick, fast, and in a hurry. You got to hit folks with bullets, not paragraphs. you know, we have 10-second attention span. So you'll see a commercial online that lasts 10 seconds, but it was 10 seconds long enough to tell you what you need to buy. So we'll keep our fingers crossed, and we'll keep, as Jesse Jackson used to say, keep hope alive, and we'll see what happens. And a big shout out to Rhonda Brown. This was a huge undertaking. It was something that had never happened in this city. And thanks to her tenacity, her persistence, her I want to say doggedness, because I'm telling you, Rhonda was pushing, she was pushing, but all of that was not in vain. We got the job done, and I want to thank her for that. And again, thank you to all of you. As always, know yourself, love yourself, be yourself. Make today your absolute best day. Peace, and we'll look forward to our next.
Peace. All right.
Peace. Thank you,
All right.
everybody. Have a beautiful rest of your day.
You
All right.
too. Mhm.
Bye bye.
All right.